presidential visit. President Biden touches down in the Northwest.
It's been too long since America's invested in our own airports, our ports, and our rails.
The president now traveling from Portland to Seattle. We'll show you his arrival live on King 5 News at 5. And the traffic nightmare it's sure to cause.
We see more traumatic things than most people would ever consider in their lifetime.
Prioritizing mental health.
We can see that in a week or month.
The unlikely source guiding law enforcement agencies dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder.
You can understand the building in a way you just couldn't before.
60 years in the making. We're celebrating the Seattle staple that started as a doodle. First, a live look at SeaTac Airport this evening. We expect President Biden to land in Seattle in about 40 minutes or so as part of his first trip here to the Northwest since taking office. His visit coming just ahead of Earth Day tomorrow.
The president was in Portland just about 15 minutes ago. This is Air Force One taxiing away. His focus there was infrastructure spending, like an earthquake-resilient runway at Portland International Airport. Glad to have you with us tonight. I'm Greg Copeland.
I'm Joyce Taylor. The president's focus while in Seattle, the climate and prescription drug costs. We're covering it all for you tonight with Shante Sumter, Erica Zucco, Chris Daniels. Our team coverage begins with King 5's Sebastian Robertson live at SeaTac tonight. Sebastian.
Hi, Joyce. The White House scheduling 50 minutes for the flight from Portland up north to Seattle. The president boarded a little after the scheduled departure time of 4:25. We are told he and his staff are en route to Seattle. Here are some images from the visit to Portland as the president makes this tour of the Northwest. We know that the president visited the Portland International Airport to highlight critical infrastructure. Talking about an earthquake-resistant runway there was one of the talking points he made there as he works to make this pitch for more resilient infrastructure across the United States. Once the president arrives in Seattle, he'll have a full day ahead of him tomorrow. Chris Daniels will have more on that coming up a little bit later in the show. Meanwhile, the president will be flying on Air Force One, that 747-200. That's a highly modified Boeing aircraft. It has the 4 engines on it. Pretty incredible to see arrive in person. If you are able to get outside and take a look into the skies, you should see it hopefully in the next 15 to 20 minutes here as the president arrives in SeaTac. We'll be carrying that live here on King 5 at Seattle Tacoma International Airport. Sebastian Robertson, King 5 News.
We'll get back to you shortly. So the president's visit is shutting down parts of I-5 right now, right in the middle, of course, of rush hour.
Shante Sumter joins us now to walk us through the areas that are going to be most impacted.
Well, Joyce and Greg, right now, WashDOT has shut down the cameras on I-5, so it's black. So that means we're getting close to that closure. So we do expect that near SeaTac, we're going to see some road closures and delays in that area. So if you're going to pick someone up or if you're leaving, you can look for that. Also, we already are seeing those closures down in the downtown Seattle area near the West End on 5th Avenue. So between Lenore Street and Olive Way and Westlake Avenue. Also portions of Denny Way, 4th Avenue, Lenore Street, Virginia Street, and Pine Street all blocked at the moment. So what you can expect is heavy congestion in the Seattle area. Soon we're going to be dealing with temporary closures of the freeway system. And then you're going to see more commuters on Pacific Highway, because usually when a president or some type of dignitary comes to town, we see a lot of folks start to head out there to avoid I-5. Also, another thing to keep in mind, you're going to be dealing with some delays on those transit service. So Sound Transit, King County Metro, if you usually take that service into the downtown area, you want to check those rider alerts. That's also your best option if you're planning to come to the Mariners game tonight.
Shante, thank you. So the president is about to arrive, and as you can imagine, security is extremely tight. He is going to be staying overnight in downtown Seattle, and King 5's Erica Zucco joining us live from outside the West End. What are you seeing down there right now, Erica?
Right, Joyce. Well, we witnessed those closures that Shante was talking about in person. Of course, as you mentioned, all of that because of security. And you can see there's really a large presence here. We're over near 5th and Stewart, and you can see a few blocks here worth of security. There are a lot of Seattle Police Department officers on scene. Down there, you can see a tent that was set up, and all this security is majorly being coordinated by the Secret Service. I did reach out to a number of law enforcement agencies. Now, earlier today, we saw security all throughout the downtown area. In traffic wasn't necessarily as bad as you might expect, but parking down here was really tough. We actually parked a few blocks away before we were able to come up to this area near the Westin to see what the security situation looks like. Now, for the most part, people are still able to walk around this area, but they do have several security checkpoints that are set up, especially right in front of the Westin. We saw people who were trying to go that are staying at that hotel. They had to check in and give their information in order to do that. So we know there's really tight security right now, and we can potentially expect that to ramp up throughout the evening. I spoke with a couple officers on scene who say that they expect to be here all throughout the night. Now, for a little more on what we can expect to hear from the president, we want to send it over to my colleague Chris Daniels.
Yeah, Erica, the president talked about infrastructure down in Portland, and after a stop at a private fundraiser here in Seattle, he will talk about two different issues, two different stops on Friday. It doesn't matter who the president may be, these kinds of visits are usually well scripted, and this one will be no different. White House Deputy Press Secretary Chris Marr.
On Earth Day, we're going to be highlighting the progress we've made in terms of battling climate change.
Multiple sources say that morning event at Seattle's Seward Park will involve an executive order. The Washington Post reports Biden will sign an order directing the federal government to catalog and protect mature trees and those at risk from wildfires and climate change, before heading to Green River College in Auburn for another announcement.
Prescription drug costs is one of the big areas where people pay the most out of pocket each and every day. We're talking about lowering the cost of childcare and elder care and health care.
Are you concerned at all that the president's message will be blunted tomorrow by the fact that most Americans right now care about the economy, inflation, and gas prices?
No, look it. We care about gas prices. Frankly, we Democrats hate gas prices so much, we want to eliminate the price of gas. We don't want to decrease it by a nickel or a lousy dime. We want it to go to zero.
Washington Governor Jay Inslee today. There's going to be a lot of people, though, that are going to be forced to idle their gas tanks tomorrow because they're going to be stuck in traffic, not only tonight, but into tomorrow. To those people that are going to be sitting in traffic because the president's moving around, what do you say to them?
I'd say that it's a price we pay for a bright future for our kids.
I want that relationship between the White House and the federal resources right here in Seattle.
Seattle's mayor says he believes these presidential trips are about more than just the short visit.
It could be a small price to pay, as the governor said, for the enormous benefits we could have with our partnership with the federal government. And we're not, when we build these relationships with the White House, we just don't ask for climate change dollars. We ask for infrastructure dollars. We ask for dollars in education. We ask for dollars to help our economy. And so these relationships are critical.
The Green River College president said today that that event is not open to the public necessarily, that all the tickets have already been distributed, and those decisions were made by the Biden administration and by the college staff. She also said, and quoting now, "As a college, we do not endorse a specific campaign or political agenda. We make our facilities available when they are not being used for educational or athletic purposes." Again, that event scheduled in Auburn tomorrow afternoon. But for now, live in a heavily fortified downtown Seattle, I'm Chris Daniels, King 5 News.
So again, the president should arrive at SeaTac by about 5:20 in less than 15 minutes, and we'll bring that to you live when it happens.
After that, we will follow the president's motorcade, so make sure you stay with King 5 through the evening.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you've enjoyed your Thursday. The weather again back and forth. Sunshine, rain, and a few storms. And we're seeing one of those showers move through Olympia right now. Looks like some heavier downpours associated with that, but that's now going to be heading northward. But a bit of a cool down with it. Temperatures back down into the 40s, while other areas which haven't really seen the rain recently are still holding on to the 50s. We're noticing some showers, even a storm moving now north into the Cascades. One particular cell just east of Monroe, that's heading up towards the north into the east, and then some heavier rain around Snoqualmie and Issaquah, while seeing a lot more of that thunderstorm activity. While we're noticing that across the eastern part of the state, things should be quieting down on into the night. So we'll have a few showers as we head out to the Mariners and Rangers game. Temperatures starting off in the low 50s, dropping into the 40s. We'll talk about the drier weekend ahead, plus when we could see some of those 60s coming up.
Just the cumulative stuff over years and years and years of going from one tragedy to another and just letting it pile up and not addressing it.
Law enforcement agencies are getting support from the state to help officers deal with the stresses of the job. More than 20 agencies just got state grant funding to help law enforcement officers process the trauma of the job. As one sergeant tells King 5's Drew Mickelson, the help could prevent officer suicides.
Murders involving children, deadly car crashes, search and rescues that get co-workers seriously hurt.
We see more traumatic things than most people would ever consider in their lifetime. We can see that in a week, a month.
Radio 1 Charles 18. Mason County Sergeant Trevor Severance has responded to stressful scenes for more than 20 years. He says it never really bothered him until he shot and killed someone in 2015. He was cleared of any wrongdoing, but his wife and friends said the shooting changed him.
And he says, I don't know what's going on, but your wife called and you need to talk to somebody. And that's where I started to realize that I didn't see it, but everybody else did.
More than 7 years later, he still suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, something he says law enforcement officers often struggle with in a workplace where asking for help is hard.
We have to be strong for everybody else, and we don't want to show weakness. And it's in our own egos and in our own industry. It's just been, you're just tough, suck it up, deal with it.
The state legislature wants to change that and is offering grant funding to law enforcement agencies to offer more mental health support. Mason County is using the funding to improve workout facilities as a way to encourage physical well-being. The money will also be used to offer counseling to deputies in need.
I'm better at recognizing when I'm having struggles and when other people are having struggles.
While Sergeant Severance is still dealing with what he's seen on the streets, he's also helping younger coworkers learn how to process it all.
To where they're not carrying 20 years of tragedy and then having it all come out at once, usually in a negative way.
The Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs will also be getting $1 million next year from the state legislature to work on an app to give to law enforcement officials so they can contact mental health professionals without their superiors knowing. That is something Sergeant Severance says is still a problem. In Olympia, Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
Well, still ahead, the president is scheduled to land at SeaTac shortly. We are following the arrival and the impact on your travel day next. This is a live look as Air Force One makes its way into SeaTac Airport, about ready to land here any moment. We thought it would be late by about 15 minutes after it departed from Portland International a little bit late, but they have made up the time, and Air Force One is touching down at SeaTac right now. Much more on the president's arrival and his time here right after the break. You're watching King 5 News at 5.